Kate, some positive economic data for France?
I know, it does sound surprising, and it's certainly been welcomed by François Hollande. The private sector here in France has been growing at its fastest pace in 2.5 years this month. Preliminary readings of the Purchasing Managers' Index hit 51.6 in March. That's up from just 47.9 in February and above the 50 benchmark that indicates growth. It's a surprise for economists who had expected French businesses to continue contracting. Now, overall, we saw European growth slowing slightly to 53.2, but Europe does remain on the path to recovery, in part because of those stronger than expected results here in France. It marks the 9th month of expansion in the Eurozone. We saw German manufacturing slowing down a little bit, but still coming in strong. Some worries about Chinese manufacturing as activity contracted there to an 8-month low. And in the US, the PMI fell from a nearly 4-month high in February, down nearly 2 points to 55.5. Now, all that data did little to boost the markets. We saw red across the board here in Europe, with Germany's DAX down over 1.5%. The MICEX in Moscow also sliding as Western powers discuss possible sanctions. We've seen that negative trend reaching across the Atlantic onto Wall Street as well. The Nasdaq seeing its worst trading day in 7 weeks. Shares there have been weighed down by heavy losses in the biotech industry. Now, one of the things that has been moving the markets recently is the value of currencies, in particular the euro, which has been climbing in value against the dollar and is trading at its highest level since 2011. That means that European exporters are finding it harder to sell their products abroad because they're more expensive for those buying outside the eurozone. In southwest France, the problem is affecting those aircraft manufacturers that have sprung up around the Airbus headquarters in Toulouse. From there, our correspondent Chris Bachman reports.
It's showtime. Daher Sakata may not be a household name like Airbus, but it's France's 4th biggest airplane maker and just unveiled its latest 6-seater aircraft, the TBM 900. They cost €3.5 million each, and 80% of them are sold in the US and Asia. They are market leaders, but the company says they are competing against their rivals with one arm tied behind their back.
The high euro makes it very difficult for us to sell at the right price. So we have to invest much more than other countries in innovation, in robotization, automatization, in order to compensate the price of the euro.
3 hours away by car is this supplier, Ricardo. It has a niche market making parts for aircraft that are still flying but no longer being built. Just 15% of its business is outside the Eurozone, but management is under pressure from clients to bill in dollars, and that could mean less work for subcontractors in France.
To compensate for the fluctuation of the dollar, we have to buy a maximum of raw materials and components in dollars. So we're obliged to look for subcontractors outside the Eurozone.
Both companies say maintaining the aerospace know-how in Europe is their priority, but extremely difficult in the long term if the high euro means their overheads are automatically 20% higher.
Let's move on to some of the day's other business headlines now. Here in France, the failing mail-order business La Redoute has agreed to a restructuring deal with one of its major unions. The CFDT represents a majority of the 3,400 employees. La Redoute sells everything from clothing to furniture by catalog, but it struggled to compete against internet shopping. The deal will allow parent group Kering to sell the business for a symbolic €1 to its chief executives. The low-cost Asian airline Tiger Airways is buying 37 new Airbus planes. The A320neos have a list price of $3.8 billion. The company says it negotiated a significant discount. It'll be a major expansion for the Singapore-based airline, which currently has 48 planes in operation. And a new player in the cloud computing game as Cisco announces a $1 billion investment over the next 2 years. The network hardware giant is trying to penetrate new markets as its revenue declines. Cloud computing is currently dominated by Amazon, but it's facing fierce competition as more and more customers turn to the digital cloud. I'll be back with more business news for you throughout the evening. For now, it's back to you, François.
All All right, many thanks for that, Kate Moody. Time now for sports. Let's say hello to